Are you ready? Let's go!
Don't you sometimes just want to talk about everything? You know, there's days when you can just talk about anything. Need to sit back and chat about nothing at all? Nothing but Julie, coming at you with fun and creative topics and interviews.
Did you hear Julie's podcast? She's got the greatest topics.
Come join the chat about everything, anything, and nothing. So unwind and tune in to Nothing But Julie. Great topics and cool interviews with some pretty awesome people. And now, without further delay, here's Nothing But Julie.
Hi, everybody. It's Julie Schrager and Rhonda Marie, Nothing But Julie podcast. Hope you're all doing great. Happy Thursday to you. Hey, Rhonda.
Hey, Julie. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good.
So, guys, we decided to do a really cool topic, at least we think so, which is how have your goals changed over your life? And I think that it's a really great topic because it's going to probably make you think. Especially for me, because I've got to tell you, I guess I never really think about my life as like a goal, like what goals do I want to achieve? It's just like, okay, what do I want to do now? Or what do I maybe want to change in my life? And so it should be interesting to talk about it because when I think back to my youth, many years ago, it's like, I really haven't, I don't think I've changed so much in like way of the things that I've wanted to do, but how things progressed over my life have definitely changed. What about you?
Yeah, I used to and I think maybe a lot of people in their teens and 20s think this. I used to think that if I got a job making a lot of money, then all my dreams would come true. And that was like the most important thing. And so that has definitely changed over the years.
It's interesting when I think about it, because I had done a separate podcast on, like your inner strengths and things that, it touches a little bit on like what we're talking about today, but I never really spend time thinking about my goals, like using that word. It's just more of like, I'm sick of doing this. What do I want to do next? And ever since I was, young, it was always business. I didn't know like exactly what I wanted to do in business, but I just knew I loved corporate and dressing up and dressing the part,
Yes.
And I did. I started doing that at a younger age. Most of my friends were, still finishing up college while I'm working full time and at the time making what I thought was decent money, but it got better as my experience grew. But I remember that that's all I wanted to do. I wanted to get to this like precipice to where I've achieved, well, I guess a goal. And then I got pregnant with my son and I stopped working in corporate, stopped working in big business and never looked back, never went back to it. And I was 27 when I had my son. So I was still fairly young. And I know that and you can relate to this because you have a son. Things just change. Your priorities change and it's always us. I feel like women. I could be wrong. There's a lot of men that are staying home now, but things for me just had to come to an abrupt halt when I had my son, and I had to learn a whole new career, which was being a mom and being the nurse and the caretaker and, the chaperone and the chauffeur and not getting paid for any of that. And it was all new because I went from working full time and being busy. And then all of a sudden it was, okay, I've got this little infant that just poops and pees and eats and sleeps.
Always needs something.
But he slept a lot. And I was just like, what am I supposed to do now? I remember going crazy because there was more time until he got a little older, and then it was just nonstop.
Then it's sports and
Oh my
doing
God.
all of this stuff.
Yes. And I'll touch on that, but do you remember when you had your son and how your whole life changed and maybe
It
your future and goals?
it did, but I was very young when I had him.
You were young, yeah.
So I didn't I'd never, I'd had jobs before, but I'd never had a career before. I was in my first year of college. And so
Right, right.
I still had that so then I was trying to do it all, like go to college, have a job, have a baby. And so I grew to be very busy all the time. And I realized that as I got older and my son needed me less, and then I went to teaching instead of the corporate, like I was working in the legal field and in the government. And so I was doing a much different thing. And then when I went to teaching, it was different. And there was a lot of breaks. Like we had the whole summer off, or we had 2 weeks at Christmas. And I,
Right. I remember.
yeah. And then when my son was older and didn't need me as much, I kind of felt a little lost because I wasn't constantly busy.
Yeah,
And
I
then
know. I know the
then this
feeling.
year or last year, I guess now, when COVID hit, I really like it was really a shock to me because I was like, well, now we're just at home.
I
You-
know.
and you can only reorganize all the closets in the house so
Oh
many
my God.
times.
You know how many people are in the same boat? And it does make me feel a little better to say that. But I've got to tell you, when I think about what you just said, I think that when I was younger and I had my son, I never thought like about what am I going to do when he's older? Because I couldn't think that way. He was just a baby, or what am I going to do with my life? And it was not something I had thought about because that was my life at the time.
Right.
And slowly watching how things have changed and going through the changes, like I was working after he turned 5, we moved, and I started to work in the elementary school when he was going to elementary to have the same schedule, and then middle school. And then when he was in middle school, I started to work at a local small business, and I worked there for 3 years because he was very flexible and let me, work almost full time, but it was not full time. It was more like part time. I worked 5 days a week, but from like 10 to 2.
Oh yeah.
And so I was able to drop off my son, pick up my son, and it was just a job. It wasn't anything, that I could build a future with. And then after that, I started working in the high school, and it just everything started to slowly slow down with me and my son. The sports, definitely slowed down. He was really into sports when he was younger. But as he got older, he just, he picked and he chose exactly like what one sport he
Right.
might
Which
want to.
things he's going to do. My son did the
Exactly.
same thing. I mean, we
Right.
did everything when he was younger
Right. Right.
because I wanted him to try different things and figure out what he liked. And then
Right.
as he got older, he knew what he liked, and the ones he didn't want to put the effort into kind of went to the wayside.
And I started thinking when that started happening, like, oh no, is this like the beginning of the end? Because, now he's halfway through high school and I'm thinking, oh God, okay, the sports have slowed down. Excuse me. And you know what? You meet so many people when your children are in sports. That's kind of almost how you have a
That's
social
how
life,
yeah,
right?
that is your social life.
That's your social. But then you're meeting people and you're starting to get together and go to parties and barbecues and then this and that. And then, they start to dwindle off as the sports start to dwindle off. Then he graduated high school and was in college, and the sports were completely over. Whatever sports he did, he just played with friends and whatever, basketball at the courts or whatever it was. And he was so into his college studies. And it wasn't too long after that I stopped working at the high school I was working at and started the dog walking business and became extremely busy with that and went head first. And but I was feeling like a great loss, like because my son was no longer in need of me. He didn't need me driving him here, driving him there, and making parties for him or play dates and all that stuff that we moms do. And it just
Right.
once it started dwindling, I started having more time, but certainly not as much time as I have now. And then my business took a hit with COVID. And I, like you, have had to figure out what the hell to do with myself when I'm not as busy as I used to be. I
Right.
mean,
And I used to never set goals for myself. Like, and that, I mean, like, I never really thought about it in terms of like, oh, this is my goal and these are my steps I'm going to get here. And I do that now.
yeah.
And I've had to learn how to do that though. But I guess some people just always do that. And maybe that's why I felt a little lost when my things got like waylaid by COVID because I was just left without a plan.
Hmm. I think that's how a lot of people have become. It's certainly how I've become because it I had to kind of when COVID hit and my business took a hit, I had to kind of revert back to the days when I first became a mom. And how did I handle at the beginning it was a bit lonely. I was used to always being around people, excuse me, and having a social life and being able to always do something. And all of a sudden it was I am literally stuck at home with this child, at least for like the first month. And then, what can I do to pass the time? And I had to revert back to that. It was really hard to kind of remember because we're talking years ago. And it just, I just started thinking up new things and ways to keep myself busy. And I'm still not as busy as I'd like to be, but at least I feel like, I have more things to look forward to. And as far as goals go, I was talking about earlier in my other podcast about, what things are you good at? What things are you best at? And that's kind of helped me to kind of predict like where my future's going to go, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Like what
Yeah.
things can I think about now that can kind of help me not so much reach my goals, but continue to be happy and busy or somewhat busy in my later years because I don't want to be that person that just kind of sits around and just works out and then that's the end of it. I don't want to be that person. I want things to look forward to. Let's say I'm no longer making money. Well, I mean, I still want to have things that I want to do, things I want to achieve. And I was talking about like kind of digging into yourself and really trying to figure out like what your passions are, like passions versus things that you're good at. And I was talking about that I really want to start to learn pottery because I think that that's something I would really enjoy and something I would really be good at. And it would be something that would be really good for me to do as I get older when my husband is, let's say, retired and I'm retired and I don't want to just sit around and watch TV all day. I want to be active and I want to have maybe some hobbies, some things to look forward to. So when I think about goals in life, it's not just about work. It's about, like what is it that you want to achieve in your life? And I really started thinking about it more often now because, like my parents live near me and my dad's not, doing very good. And, I just see how like my mom has suffered through it and how like her life has just become about my dad. And a lot of the things that she used to like to do, she can't, or at this time she can't. She might get back to it. And I want to be able to still enjoy my life regardless of, like what happens in it. And of course, my dad being sick, my mom has to be his healthcare advocate and caretaker right now. But the fact that she's like stopped everything is not something I kind of wish that she did. I still wish that she had things that she could do even at home, like certain
Yeah.
hobbies. And so that's what made me
Yeah.
start thinking, you know?
Yeah. I think that's, Mark and I were actually talking about it the other day because, we talked about how when I, like most people, like I did when I was younger and like, they focus solely on like a career goal.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the whole, that's their whole life is like, I'm going to make a lot of money. I'm going to have this career. And they don't focus on like other enriching things for their life. And so we were talking about, we have a neighbor and he's in his 80s and he does like all of these projects around his property and his house every day.
Mm.
And he's always just like puttering and doing something. And we talked about how nice that is to see him, in his late 80s still doing all of these things just because he has interests outside of his work, what he did for his job his whole life.
Right.
And so he has all these little projects and things that he does, and it's nice. And we found this quote that says, you wear out no matter what. It can either be from rust or use.
Ooh, that's a
And
good
I
one.
really liked that because I was like, that is so true.
Yeah.
Your body's going to wear out
Ugh.
no matter what.
God, that's so
So
sad.
it is sad. I was like, but you might as well have it wear out doing things that you love.
Right. I agree. And it's a great quote. Sometimes, God, how people come up with the perfect words in a quote to just describe 20 different thoughts going on in someone's head, right?
Right.
That's a perfect quote. And you know what else? I think that, yeah, I think everyone's goals change as they get older. I think that I think it's just kind of a part of life, because you can't always predict what's going to, really happen in your life. And and because you can't always predict, you might wind up, with different goals because of things that you might not have known were going to happen a year from now. Like, let's say COVID. I think that for some people, including myself, COVID has been a blessing in disguise. And I think that for many people as well, because I think that so many people were just so used to the rigmarole of, getting up at a certain time, wash your face, brush your teeth, get ready, blah, 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 clock in, clock out,
Yes.
right? And now you've got people sitting in their underwear on Zoom calls, which I think is hysterical. But this has actually become the future. A lot of companies feel that they can save money by having employees work at home versus, and what I mean by money, I don't mean salaries changing. I mean just the overhead that it can cost to have an actual office building or an
Yeah, I mean,
office.
and I think people are learning that a lot of jobs that they thought would be impossible to do from home
Yes,
really is doable.
it is. Yeah.
And I think for some people, they really like working from home
Hmm.
and wearing, sweatpants all
Well,
day.
sure.
And I mean, and I think there's some people that probably miss going to the office, but I think people have really been forced to get creative on ways to do
I
things.
agree. And my husband, he works for a Fortune 100 company, and it's a very big company, and he is not allowed to do face to face still. And he hasn't even heard word of when he can or if he might ever. I think that the protocols have changed quite a bit. And so he works from home and he's set up. We have a lanai, in the back, and it's okay that he's working out there. It's just that used to be like my home away from home, the little extension of my
Right.
home, and it's now become my husband's home office. And so I had to be very careful with when I wanted to tell my husband, can you get your shit out of here? In a very nice, delicate way, of course, like, honey, I'm so happy that you enjoy working out here and blah, blah, blah. But is there any way that you could maybe put away some of these things? Because I like to come out here too. And it's my safe haven also. And I can't even like have a cup of tea because your stuff is all over the table. Nye, nye, nye. You're trying to be all, sweet and, phony. But he said the other day, I don't think I even want to go back to work. I mean, he's working, but he means like getting in the car and doing the face to face sales and all that.
Right.
And I get it. He loves being home. We have a puppy and another dog. And like I said, my son is grown and he loves I mean, I'll make lunch, breakfast and lunch for him, just because I'm making it for myself. But he's enjoying the whole everything about it. And every now and then, like maybe a couple of days a week, he'll go to this cigar place where they actually have an area set up for him outside in the shade, a little table and a chair. So he can still be outside, but, enjoy kind of being somewhere else. But it's changed. It's changed quite a bit for him, and he enjoys it. Not everyone does, but I can't see how you can't like it.
I don't see how you can't like it either. But I know that there are people who really like to have that routine and, get up and go to their office every day.
I get that. Yeah.
And it's changed schools so
Mm-hmm.
much. And I see a lot of my teacher friends are saying like that some of the grace that they've had with students and learning and teachers, that is something that we should have all the time and not just, right now. So looking at things differently.
Mm-hmm.
I know that I recently read an article about teaching, and they talked about forcing kids to have their cameras on.
Ooh.
And that their classmates can all see their home. And a teacher spoke out against that and said, if we need to, as teachers, be able to see the kids to do the lesson, then there needs to be an option for only the teacher to see the video and not the whole classroom, because of the living situations of some kids.
Sure.
They can't control things. They may not. There's been a lot of bullying of kids who maybe their house isn't that nice or that clean, or, and they're all things beyond this child's control. And so there's been a lot more focus on that.
That's very interesting.
How do we help?
I never even thought of that. Wow.
Yeah. And how do we help these kids that don't have a great home life? Their home is dirty, but not just now, all the time. Like, how do you assign homework to a kid who, when they go home, their home life is chaotic and they have, parents who are fighting and yelling and all this going on? It's hard for them to focus. But now having this glimpse into their homes has made people, I guess, a little more cognizant of it. They're seeing it. So
yeah. And I'll tell you, I mean, look, bullying has been going on forever. And certain extreme situations have been going on in home lives of children forever. And I think the teachers never were really, they might have known about it with a certain child, but never knew the extremeness of it. And that's, I don't know. I mean, I think that with the Zoom, they could just do audio. But I'm going to tell you something, and I am not in 100% agreement with doing these lessons even live. I think that the reason why they're doing it, well, I know the reason why, because they want it to be just like a regular classroom and attendance and this and that. But
yes,
but I know that
and they're right. They're trying to do all of these things that you can do in a regular classroom, but it doesn't work. It's not, I mean, and I'm seeing it firsthand with my stepdaughter. It doesn't work.
No, but what does work?
It's very difficult for her to pay attention when the house is still going on.
It's very hard,
even though she's in her room, there's, the dogs coming in and out, or, she can probably hear us doing things in the living room.
Well, what about us and doing a podcast and trying to find a minimum of an hour of total silence? It's I mean, I hear my husband is in the kitchen right now, which is the opposite wall of my room, and he's banging and this and that. He knows I'm doing the podcast, but it's like,
So I'm in my shed. So that means like, they know that I'm recording it, so they know not to come in. But like, I can hear my dogs barking in the yard.
Well, that's what I mean.
Or I could hear like the mailman going by.
And look, I look, kids need to learn about distractions as they get older and how to, just like animals, like when I'm training, they have to learn about distractions. But my son did very well with virtual, and I know we spoke about this, and he did not have a classroom that he had to Zoom in. He did it at his own pace and did his work at his own pace, and it was the best thing for him. So I think that there are many kids that might do much better with the virtual versus the remote, the in what is it, in class participation with Zoom or whatever it's called, I
Right.
think that it would work just as well without having to have the teachers actually, physically teach. They will be teaching you, they will have all of their um, assignments, their lessons, whatever they on YouTube and
Hmm.
on any other
And they just,
audio, but they just aren't.
and then they just, yeah. So 2 days a week she does that,
Oh,
which is
you
wonderful.
see?
So, and this is new. So 2 days she's going to school, 2 days she's doing that self-paced, and only one day is the Zoom meetings now.
Okay.
And so it's so much
That's
better.
great.
But like today was the Zoom meeting, and you can just, I just hate Wednesday mornings now. It's only a half day. So it's only a half day of Zoom meetings, which is better. And it's just a kind of a time so they can ask questions
Okay.
about what they've been doing and what they're expected to
Hmm.
do. And so that's the only Zoom meetings. And then they go over some math, and they go over, like, you guys all took this test online, and let's go over some things that everybody got wrong. And so it's working out much better.
How is she
um
doing with the virtual versus the Zoom? Does she seem to be liking it?
it seems it seems better. She, though, had decided, and this was a while back, she had decided that she didn't know how to do division, and she simply could not learn it. And so she was skipping all of the math on the virtual
Oh.
school. And then when they would come together for in person or the Zoom, she didn't know how to do it. But
Hmm.
instead of paying attention, she would just color during that
Oh,
time.
okay.
And so, like, she just is like, well, I don't know division. And I heard her one day, and this is how she got caught. I heard her on the Zoom meeting on the Wednesday, because we make her keep her door open so that we can hear her, just because she has a tendency to take over the conversation, and we kind of need to give her that look. Um, and she said, well, I just don't know how to do division. And then she kind of laughed. And then I could hear her teacher saying, well, what can I do to help? Like, what do you need from me? If you're not getting it on these virtual
Hmm.
lessons, thinking that she was trying and she just hadn't gotten
Oh.
it. Like, that's what she was thinking.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, what can I do to help you? And she's like, well, I'm just not going to do it.
Oh,
I'm just not going to do the
wow.
division, because it's difficult and I don't know how. And so I came in there and I talked with the teacher as well. And I was like, what? I said, what is happening? Because we don't know how to, the parents have no training on how to check on our
Right.
side to make sure these kids have done the lesson.
Okay.
And so her teacher walked me through how to check to make sure she's done these things.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, great. I'll check every day now. Like, at the end of the day, I'll check to make sure she's done these things. And so that's how she got caught. But that's the only thing, is that I think, with, like, your son did the work,
Yeah. Yeah.
and did it and did very well. I think if some kids don't get it, and then they're the kind to be like, well, I didn't get it the first time, so guess I just don't need that. That's the downfall I can see with her virtual learning.
Yeah. It's not easy for some. And I remember getting backlash for it. And I remember whenever someone would give me backlash, I was just like thinking to myself, it amazes me that, aren't there certain things that you do for your child that might be better for your child than others? Yes. Then
Right. And why does it
why
matter?
does it matter? But not just that.
Why does it
Right.
matter?
Why does it matter? But take that and put that aside. If you're doing certain things for your child that I can't question, then why are you questioning what I'm doing, what's best for my child? And let me tell you, if I were to say something to, let's say, one person who didn't agree with my son doing virtual, and I would say, well, um, I don't agree with the fact that, your child does this. I don't think it's a good idea. Watch how instant anger can just be produced from this parent because you're now talking about their child. But when they say something about your child, it's, oh, you should accept what I'm saying, in my opinion. And I was now, no, for the people that know me, I'm very strong-headed, and I'm like Mother Bear when you talk about anyone that I'm close with. You don't talk to me or anyone about their children And whether you agree or disagree with what I'm doing for my child, it's none of your business. Stay out of it. And
Right. As long as I'm not harming them
like, shut
or
up.
neglecting
Oh, I
them,
would never do
then
this
don't.
because of the social aspect.
Oh,
And I just remember,
but there's other ways for your kid to get
oh, for God's
socialized.
sake, of course there is. But they always, I mean, they are all, oh, school and school and school. Yeah. How do you feel now, guys? How do you
Right.
feel now? Like, you're screwed.
Right.
You don't have a choice. And the only reason that I found that parents would behave that way or say things like that to me is because they just did not want to have to deal with having to socialize their children. They wanted the schools to do it for them.
Right.
And
And I think that's a lot with the education too.
yeah,
Like parents are very much like, this is not my job.
yeah.
This is the teacher's
Oh,
job.
bullshit. I know that's how they view things because that's how their parents viewed it. But you know what? First of all, school can be a huge detriment to many, many kids. And it could affect them in a very negative way. And if you do things like virtual school, it doesn't mean that you're taking away their social life. It means you're taking them out of something that is not working for them. It doesn't mean that they're still not going to do activities or sports or play with their friends. I mean, just shut up. I'm going to stop because I will just rip.
Oh.
I will rip. But anyway, moving on to the goals. So, yeah, I mean, I think a lot has changed because of COVID, and some for the good, some for the bad. And we've all been forced into like a whole new way of life. And we'll probably, be wearing masks for the next year or two. Maybe some people will wear them forever. Who knows? But it kind of has a lot to do with how my goals have changed because, like I said, not working as much as I used to has kind of forced me into figuring out, like, okay, what do I want to do now, or what will maybe what I'm doing now, like, help me for in the future? Can one thing like lead to another? Can it be like a domino effect? And so sometimes you just have to kind of, I think, look into like your past and the things that you really liked. And again, I feel like I'm repeating my previous podcast, but you have to kind of like when you were a kid, what things did you really like to do? And you have to kind of look back and say, I really like to do this. And I was
Right.
really good at it. And I wonder if it's something that I would really like to continue doing, whether as a hobby or as a career. And you might at that moment realize, I think I really want to pursue this, like with what you're doing now with the coaching. Like what got
Yes.
you into starting to do that versus last year when it might have not even been a thought in your head?
So I've thought about it. Well, I was thinking about actually going back to become a therapist for a couple of
Now, do you
years,
do you
and I
have a
don't want
degree?
to.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but I was always curious. Do you have a degree in like psychology or any kind of
So I
certificate?
have a degree in
Oh,
intelligence,
right,
which
right.
is largely psychology based.
Okay.
And so I have a profiling certificate to profile individuals, and my basis was profiling them in terms of could they be a terrorist. Um,
Hmm.
like that's what my study was on, but all of it translates into, it's basically, intelligence is basically psychology with a focus on like how we can use this for public safety.
Okay.
So that's what my degree is in. And so I was going to go back and get a degree so that I could be a licensed therapist or a licensed clinical social worker, but I really didn't want to go to school again. And so my own therapist, we had switched from her doing like psychotherapy with me to more of a coaching, like a coaching method, which focuses on a different area. Um, it still uses a lot of the same things, but it focuses on not your past trauma, but how you're going to go forward in the future.
Okay.
And so there's a lot of skills and stuff. And so you don't have, like, there's no degree for it. They basically want you to know these skills. And so I took a bunch of classes to learn the different skills that are taught. And once I felt confident with them, I was like, okay, like I can do this instead of be a therapist. I also don't really want to go down somebody's like past trauma road with
Mm.
them. as I thought about it more and
Yeah.
more, I kept telling and I kept talking to my own therapist, and I was like, look, I want to help people in this way, one to one and maybe group and doing some classes. I said, but I don't know that I want to go back and hear about like all of the past terrible traumas a person has
And I
experienced.
wonder if
You know,
psychologically, for some people, yes, but for others, no, where you really have to delve into the past. I mean, I know that that's something that many therapists do in order to figure out why are you how you are, but does
yes.
it always have to be that way? Do you always have to delve into your past? Can you just move forward?
And that's kind of what I wanted to focus on. And she finally, she was like, I think you should be a coach.
Mm.
And I was like, and she said, it's kind of like a therapist. She goes, but it's exactly that. Instead of going into the past, you're just focusing on this is where you are now and this is where we're going to get you to be.
My friend, who I interviewed, is a coach as well, and she's really good at it. And she took a course. I think it was a 1 year course on how to become this life coach. And we've spoken in the past about me doing it, and I took psychology in college. It was my minor. It wasn't my major, and I've always wanted to delve into that too, but I worry if it's something I decide to do, am I going to get bored with it, or am I going to get so wrapped up in it where it might start affecting me, because I am not always a good person to just leave my hat at the door and hang up everything.
That's what I was worried
So,
about,
yeah.
right? That's one of the things that I worried about. And so that's why I ultimately was like, I can't go into people's past with
Mm,
them, like, and hear about these horrific things all day, because I'm not the kind of person that can just be like, okay, well, I'm done with my therapy job now. I'm just going to go and be happy.
right?
It will stay in
Well,
my
how
mind,
can't
and
it?
I will think about it. Yes, and that's just
For
not.
some people,
I
though,
mean, I
they're very good at just leaving it at the door.
some
And
people
I
are,
don't
and that's
I
great.
don't think I don't I no.
Right, you just know that you can't. But I knew
Help.
I wanted to like do something
Right.
similar and help people, and that's how I came into this. And I did the same thing as your friend. I took courses in the specific like skills that I knew I wanted to
Right.
use, and then I took like I think it was 10 months
What
long a
which
course
which
to
place did you take the courses through?
I took it through a community college.
Oh, cool. She did oh,
So,
I don't remember the name of it, but it was a woman who had recently passed away, and it was I mean I can look it up, but I forget, but it was a certain course that she took. It wasn't any one, it was a bunch of courses, but it was over the period of a year, I think.
right, yeah, it's a bunch of
Yeah,
different
yeah.
things. And then I joined a couple like groups where they help coaches set up the business side
Oh,
of it.
okay.
And so they teach you like the business
Mm.
aspects of it. And honestly, I'm still having to learn that, because that's the more difficult
Now,
part for
is
me.
that what is it? I know you do something. Patreon.
Patreon.
Yes.
So Patreon is a way to support like artists and stuff. And so a friend of mine did it. And so I set it up, and you give people different tiers. And so when they pay different amounts, they get like different things.
Oh,
And so I set one of those up thinking it would be a way for people to pay
okay.
if they wanted to. I also have a website, and I we have an incorporation, and everything is all done like legally like that.
Mm-hmm. And can I
Um,
ask you?
but
Well,
Patreon
just
is
for it's
yeah,
interesting.
Patreon is just a way to let people pay you for people who put blogs out or podcasts. They're on there. And then you give your people who pay more, like they get like a special podcast that's just for them,
Mm.
or they get to have like a live session with you that's just for them.
And so, but what do they get if they go through Patreon? Like what? Like let's say level one or level two. Like what is? Do they get like you live, or do they get like a series? Like do you?
Yes. Yeah. And so it's just at all different levels. I gave them like, you get a free class of your choice, because I have some courses set up.
Oh, okay.
Or you can get like, and I also included the shirts in it. So like
Ah,
if you're at a certain level, you get a shirt every month, so that way you get something
I want a
tangible.
shirt.
Um, yeah. So I just set that up for fun. Like, to see if it would be a way that it would work for people to
Okay.
pay. I know that it works out very well for some people, and then other people seem to struggle with it. And you know what? Mark and I have come to the conclusion that in all that, because sometimes when I get down about like, oh, I'm not selling enough shirts, whatever, or I see other people and like they sell out within 10 minutes of, putting a new
Yeah.
product out. And he said, yes, but Rhonda, they have 500,000 people that follow them on social media.
Okay.
He said, if you think about it, if they release something and it's 20 products, but 500,000
Mm-hmm.
people are
Sure.
following them, he said it's a
It
numbers
is.
game.
No, he's right. He's
He
right.
said, it's all it is. And, and I said, well, I don't like numbers. So,
Well, I think that it sounds like a really great avenue, to use, or at least to start with, to start to build up that kind of business, and
yeah,
other businesses like that.
it's the following you need.
Well, yeah, I
People
mean, that's how
they
everything,
don't
I
even
I know,
know.
and it's just a question of how do you get yourself out there and how do you promote yourself, and
With and how to promote yourself also without being like sales pitchy.
it's not easy. And there are just some people that just have a niche where they can just where people are like, "Ooh, I really like that." And then word of mouth. And
Yep.
referrals and this and
And
that.
then
And it's not easy because
and
a
then
lot of people are looking for the same thing, and you've just got to find what is this one secret door that I'm missing, that or the secret ingredient to.
yes, that's what I feel like I'm always looking for. I'm looking for
I
that
don't
secret
think there
ingredient.
is. I
And
just
some
think it's luck of the
I don't think there
draw,
is either.
and what it is that you're actually drawing the attention of. Like, there could be some people like these people that are on TikTok and they do the makeup. I mean, there are some
Oh yeah.
people that are incredibly talented, and then they show up in that for you page, right?
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
other people just start to like them, and then word of mouth gets out, and then the next thing you know, they've got like a gazillion followers. I think it's really
Yeah.
dependent on what it is that you're trying to
I think
show
so
people or
too.
to give to people.
Yeah, because I have a friend and she made a video and it was just like a little funny video and she thought, like just her friends would see it, that we follow each other on there. And it kind of blew up
Mm.
and she got like hundreds of thousands of followers from it. And she's like, I don't know what I did. She's like, but they just keep following me and
Ah,
following me and following me to the point, she's at like 500,000
oh
people
my
following
God.
her. And she's like, yeah. And she's like, I have no
Well,
idea
that's actually
what.
sometimes the best way to do things. You don't even realize what you've done. You've done something, but you don't realize what you've done. And then you can just enhance on that.
And that's what she's done. She originally got on the app to learn it for work. She does food marketing. And so she got on the app to learn how it works so that her team could use it for marketing food. And then she just started making little funny videos to figure out how it worked and it blew up. And now her own account is so huge and people have wanted her to create merchandise. And so
Wow.
it's turned into a whole enterprise
Wow,
for
that's
her
great.
just by
Yeah,
chance.
but
It is.
sometimes that's the way things just happen when you're not you're trying, really. Things just kind of. I was just going to say achieve a goal, but it's kind of true. Like she wasn't trying to achieve anything; she just wanted to make this video,
No.
and that's how some people get like so popular on TikTok. And you know what? Too, let's be honest, okay? I mean, look. Due to COVID, there's a lot of things that have taken off. And one of those things is TikTok. And, uh, you know, there are so many ingenious ideas. And you and I spoke about how it once was for the youth, and now adults are really into it. And
Yes.
when you really don't have much to do and you're in lockdown, people start to check out new things. And one of those things was TikTok. And you've got people that do makeup, people that cook, people that do photography, people that make, funny anthems to certain musics, and the dance trends and this and that. And it just becomes a way to kind of pass the time. But then these people become so popular that it can actually become a business for them. and they can do
Yeah.
merchandising, as you know, lots of people start to sell things or get companies that want them to advertise for them, you know, and it works out for them sometimes without even realizing it. But again, it's just one of those things where you have to catch the eyes of people and what is it that you can catch them with, you know? And I think that mental health is always something that's needed, you know. The question is, you know, how
Yeah, I
can you
think
promote
so
yourself
too.
to be like a little different than others?
Right. And that's one of the things. And also like I posted a video and it was just a funny video and I just did a little voiceover and then the haters found my page like and they all look like they're children
Hmm.
and I'm just like I don't what do I do?
Yeah.
You're obviously 12 and you're just over here commenting and it has nothing to do with the video and you're just being mean and then people are trying to defend me in the comments and then
Well, you
they're
just
just
turn
fighting
your
and
comments off.
that's what I said. I was like I just want to
You
delete the
just have to
whole
turn the
thing.
comments off. You delete the negatives and then you turn the comments off. But it seems as though that's how people want to get noticed. Like if they make a negative comment,
Yes.
well, then they're getting noticed and then people go to their page.
Then they're getting
Well,
that
yeah. I mean,
attention. Yeah.
I don't think the 12-year-olds are being I think they're being deliberate in doing what they're doing or saying what they're saying, you know? I mean,
Well, yeah, because they want that any attention is good attention
very
for
true.
them.
And it kind of like brings me back into talking about, you know, goals and how they've changed because I'm sure that when you were younger, you weren't thinking about you know, where you're at now. I think it's you know, there are a lot of people or kids that have always known what they wanted to do their whole life, right? Okay.
I've always been jealous
Ugh,
of
I
those
hate it.
people.
It makes me nuts. But
I
let's talk about this. That's for their career. I'm talking about
it
goals.
always is
It's just
just
their
their
career. But what
career.
about
Yeah.
the rest of your life? Okay, great. You wanted to be a veterinarian and you went to a gazillion years of school and you are now a vet. Great. What do you do on your days off? What are your passions? What are your goals in your
Right.
life aside from, you know, just your career? You know, and I like know as an adult, like I think you have to also look out for the signs that goals have changed. I don't know what those signs are. Maybe just that you no longer have an interest in something or you don't like get excited over something. But I think it's really great when you're young and you know what you want to do, but your life is not just about your career. So what do you do on your day off?
Right.
Or is it just getting together with friends, going out to lunch, go rollerblading? Well, that's really great, but don't you have other interests and passions in your life and other goals you might want to set that you can do aside from, let's say, raising a family and having a career? What you get, I think, so involved. We get so involved in our lives when we have our careers, when we have a family, and we don't even think about like how life is passing us by and that there are other things in our lives that we can actually be doing besides what has become the norm to many of us, you know. And I've always been so like so open to thinking about myself and what I always wanted to do aside from what I was just doing, but there wasn't time to do it, which is why now I'm where I am and I can go back to what I was thinking about years ago to when I wasn't as busy and what things did I wanted what I want to achieve. And I don't really give a shit about achieving anything. I just want to be happy and busy and I want to continue to do things that are fun and interesting and passionate in my life. But is it a goal? I don't know. I
I
don't think so.
I don't know that it's a goal. I mean, I guess I set goals for my
Right.
businesses
But you
like
see,
of
career.
things I want to achieve. Right, because that's like the career or that's like a money thing. But for myself, I'm just like really like the same thing. The goal is I want to be financially stable enough that I can do things and not worry like, oh shit, how is my electric bill going to get paid this
Right.
month? I don't need to be rich or wealthy. I need to have my needs met and I need to, if I want to go do something, I want to be able to go do it without trying to think like, well, let me
Right.
budget. So that's as far as my financial goals go. But like, as far as the other day, Mark and I were just talking, and he said, you're just kind of at this point in your life where you can just chase whatever dream you
Mm,
want. Like, you're like, oh, I have this idea to do this. I'm going to do it. I'm going
mhm,
to do this. And so we were talking about that, about how I was like, if that's not what your life is, then are you really, what is your life?
mhm.
Like, if you feel so stuck in this box to where you're like, because I said, I have a couple friends that paint watercolor and it's beautiful. And I'm like, oh, I would love to
That's
learn how to
fun.
do that. And right. And so my friend told me, she said, here's a place where you can buy like some cheaper stuff to just play with and do it. And so I got it. And I've been trying to learn some of the things.
And you might be very good
But I mean,
at
it's
it,
like,
or it might lead to something else, you know. That's why I'm like, don't
right,
don't think that this is silly. It could be really, who cares? If you're having a good time doing it, if it's something you want to do, it doesn't matter, what anyone else
right.
thinks. It's what you want to do. I stopped caring about what people think a long time ago, and I don't care if I do something that someone might laugh at, but they can laugh as much as they want, because deep, deep down in places that they never tell you, they really want to do it. They really want to do not so much
They
what
do.
you're doing, but they
But just their thing that they've always wanted to
mhm.
try that they don't do because they don't want
Well,
people to
that's
laugh
why
at
I
them.
shout out loud what I'm going to be doing next, or what I want to do, because I think that it's a way to actually help other people say, you know what, fuck this. I'm going to do this. And you know what? Let's be honest, it all starts when we're young. I mean, when we're young and we don't have any responsibilities, and I don't think we even realize that that they are our goals. I don't think we're associating that, like when we're thinking about things, like when we're youthful, that they're either a passion or like a goal. And I think that then what happens is you're so busy with your school life and your hobbies and your dance recitals and your sports and your homework and this and that, that school is it. It's school, friends, and hobbies and sports. And then you graduate, go to college, it's a little more of that, and then you get older and you're in the midst of your career, you meet someone, you fall in love, you become a parent. Well, now you're busy being a parent, shuffling the kids around, and you have your career, and it's endless, and there's at no point have you taken a breath to think about really what you want your goals to be, or your future goals, or the passions that you had like when you were a kid, right? You just kind of, I think there's like a certain
Right.
point in time where you like stop thinking about that. But then as we get older, to kind of like where I am, or because of COVID, it's like, you know, you start now thinking about these other things that you can start to do. But I think that sometimes when you get to now retirement, and all of a sudden everything you've done in your life and the craziness that's ensued and the busyness that you've had, it now is at a halt, and you're kind of like, okay, twiddle-dee, twiddle-dum, what do I do? And that's why I think it's so important to take the time to think about these things well before retirement. So when retirement is, a few years away, you can start getting yourself ready for that next level of your life. And what is it that you'd like to do? Instead of sitting there and being like, okay, what am I going to do now when you're like in your 70s? I just think it's important to think about those things and take the time to think about the things that you can do with yourself before you get to that point.
Right. Because a lot of people find themselves they just have nothing to do. And I think it's worse for
Well,
them.
it's
I think
when I
it's
think about my
worse in the
parents,
long run
yeah,
for
my
them.
dad retired at a very young age, and he moved to a beautiful neighborhood that they still live in now, on a golf course. And what did he do? He lived, the retirement life, and he played golf and he played cards, and they went out with their friends all the time for dinners and lunches and this and that. And he would come home and he would take a nap, and, everything would be great. And this was his life, and he was busy with it. But he never thought outside of that, like what else can he do besides just this. See, to me that wouldn't be enough. um Playing cards and doing this and doing that, I would want to have to figure out what else, or what would I want to do besides just having to rely on other people. Like, what can I do for myself where it's not just about, okay, well, what if I want to play cards, but everyone's sick? What am I going to do today? Or, what if something happens and I can't play golf anymore? And he never did anything like that. He never thought past that. And now all he's been doing is sitting in front of the TV and watching TV. He doesn't exercise. He doesn't do anything to build muscle or for heart health or anything like that. And I don't want to be like that. I want to be able to be prepared for the things I want to be prepared for. And I don't want to have to rely on other people or other things to make me happy. Like, I might want to volunteer. I might want to continue with what I'm doing now with training. Well, I'm not doing it as much, but I still want to continue with that. And what other things do I have that are no longer goals but are passions? But what I do know is that I am not going to sit around watching TV and not be active and that be the rest of my life. I think that I would be completely miserable if I did that. But it's almost like what his life has become now, and he's almost like settled with that, and that's it. But there's so many people that I know that are elderly or older or seniors or whatever who are actually extremely active and are always busy doing something because they think outside the box and they think about, well, what can I do right now that, that can make me happy? And I don't know, watching him has definitely changed my perception of how I want to do things when I'm older. And I don't want to just stop. I don't know what I'm going to do when I'm his age, but I'm hoping that I'm not sitting in front of the TV and just doing that. That's not, I can't
yeah.
see myself doing that. But it's almost like, he was never like this. And then he just kind of succumbed to becoming this person. But, there's quite a few people that are elderly or older that are, that walk together in groups or walk alone and find a lot of happiness in doing that, or playing, they have pickleball here in Florida. I love it. I love pickleball, but my husband is 6'4", so it's so hard for him to kind of crouch down, and get the ball. But I love it. I love it so much. And because of COVID, it's like, I'm not playing with this person. I'm not getting near them. So I'm like forcing my husband to play
Right.
pickleball. He hates it. He really hates it. I'm like, I don't care. I want to play pickleball.
Right. And since so like it's hard because there's some things that I like to do that Mark doesn't, and things
Of
he likes
course.
to do that I don't. But right now, since we don't want to hang out with other people,
It's so
that's
true.
it.
It's like, you have no choice. I will do something I don't want to do for you, just like you have to do something for me that you don't want to do. He loves tennis, Jeff, and I love tennis too. But I'm really into the pickleball thing. I sound like, God, I sound like such a, I don't know what is, I don't even want to say what I sound like. Just like, one of those people like, oh, you play pickleball. No, it's like tennis, really. Have you ever done it? Have you ever played pickleball before? Oh
I
my
have
God.
not.
It's so much fun.
Not.
It is really just like tennis. It's just different rules and different racket, and but I have it right here where I live. So I mean, like, I'm paying for it, right? I might as well, make use of it. But there's so many people that
Yeah.
are on the courts now. It's like, but anyway, just getting
Oh,
back to the goals. I also think that you're never too old to start doing anything new. People might say, oh, I'm in my 60s. And you're never too old. If you want to do it, do it. Be happy. Don't keep thinking that you can't. I wonder if that's more of like a defense mechanism when people say I can't.
maybe like their fear of being bad at
Hmm.
something, or
So I mean, why?
not
But
wanting to
you're
try
on
it
your own
new.
doing
But
it. So who cares if you fail? Who cares? I mean, then you try and do something else, right? Yeah.
that's how I feel. Like, you know, there's been a couple things that we've tried during this. Like, we did one of these family
Ooh.
paint nights, and we were, and it was by Zoom, and so that was, you just bought the kit, and they did it by Zoom, and so you watched and they talked you through it. And Mark was like, this is terrible. I'm not good at it. But he's like, like, we did it together as a family. He's like, it was fun. He's like, my painting looks nothing like what it was supposed to. But it was like, why can't you just try that? And if you don't like it, then don't do it again. And if you find that you like it or you're good at it, then great, you've just found a
You know
new
what they
hobby.
have here too? It's a place where you can do it's called Board and Brush, and it's really just that. They have like all these different designs, and you can pick, let's say, a clock or I don't know, a big wooden sign, and right, and they have it here.
Yes.
I think it's a national thing, but I think that they came here like maybe a year ago. But anyway, my husband and I went. We had the best time because it's very manly and it's very womanly, because what they do is it starts off with like hammers and, screwdrivers and this and that. And then you can paint or you can stain things. And it's definitely geared, I would say, more towards women, but the men can pick like manly projects. And my husband chose like a toolbox, and he wound up using the toolbox actually for just things in his office area, like for pens and all this other shit. But I thought that was such a fun idea, and we had so much fun doing it. It wasn't cheap, but it's something that you can have that will last a lifetime. There's so many different things you can think of in hobbies, and I actually have the paint by numbers, that thing that I got from Amazon like a while ago. I just remembered that. Oh my God, I have to take it out.
I bought one of those too.
Me
I
neither.
haven't done it yet. And I also bought one where you place little tiny diamonds on there. And so I was
That's
like,
fun.
I saw that on Amazon, and I was like, and it was only like $15. And I thought, for $15, you can't, like, I mean, if I hate it, I spent $15 on it. If I like it, then amazing.
I agree. And I haven't done it either, but I'm going to do that, because the only way that I can do any kind of art is if it's numbered. I mean, I'm sorry, but it's the only way I can do art. Just put the numbers on there and I'll do it. But look, I think that when it comes to goals, I think like it's definitely something that no matter how old you are, you should keep thinking about it. And I think that when people have difficulty thinking about the things that they actually want to do with their lives, I always think it's such a great idea to think back to when you were younger and what things did you enjoy doing. And that can really help. And the thing that I spoke about in the other podcast also is ask people, what do you think I'm good at? Like, you're my friend, you've known me for a while, and they might actually steer you in a direction where, weren't there times when you were younger where like you went somewhere or you did something that you never did before, and all of a sudden it was, oh wow, that was so much fun, right? But that's what I'm thinking. There's so many things out there that you or so many people don't realize you could be really good at because you've never done it before. And so how do you know what goals you want if you haven't really, pushed yourself to that point to see, like with my son, he wanted to go into forensics when he was younger. And I was like, okay, if that's something you want to do, then you definitely need to go somewhere and learn about it or see what it is. And when he found out that the forensics that he wanted to do involved having to go to murder scenes, he was like, nope, because he didn't put it together. He didn't realize. But there are people I know who I would never in my wildest dreams think that they would be doing what they're doing. And it's only because they just happen to be somewhere, happen to know someone or bump into someone that they were doing whatever. And they were like, oh my God, this is wonderful. I never thought that I would like to do something like this, but I do. And it might have turned out to be a great career path for them. You never know.
That's so true, because there's a lot of things. And I would tell my students, they would come to me, and especially when I was teaching seniors, they would come to me and they had this idea of what they wanted to do. And I said, oh, great. Have you shadowed someone that does that job? Have you read a biography of someone who does that job? And most of them hadn't. And I would send them, we would find someone in the community that they could go shadow for the day. And, 9 times out of 10, they would come back and be like, that is not what
You
I thought it
see?
was. That is
Right? Well,
not what I
that's
want
just
to
it.
do.
And it's in there's that's I'm going to sound like a mom, but I can't tell you how many times I've said to my son, you need to get out there and you need to, check out so many different things instead of just what you know or what you hear about or what you see, because you might be so good at doing something you probably never even knew existed. I mean, there's always so many really cool and interesting careers that are showing up every year that weren't available when I was younger. Like some of these studies that I hear about in colleges, I'm like, what are you studying? Like, what is that? I've never heard of that before. Right?
Yes. And it's so interesting, like, because there's so many things out there that you've never
Exactly.
even thought of. And I always say that my career counselor in high school failed because there were so many things I just never even
Because
knew of.
I don't think maybe they knew of it. But you know what? That's why
They
we're still
probably
so
didn't.
young. You can have 2 or 3 or 5 careers. You can have 2 careers at the same time. Or you can just have the career that you have now and be so happy with it, but never lose sight of, your passions and maybe future goals. I know someone who, when they were 60, I think 62, maybe 63, started a whole new career, went to college, got her degree, got her master's, and started to work when she was in her early 60s. Because why not? Why can't you?
Well, I mean, you're going to be that age
Exactly.
anyway. You might as well do what you want to do.
I love that. You're going to be that age
That's kind of
anyway.
how I look
It's
at it.
so true.
Like you're gonna turn 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. I'm about to turn 40 and everybody's like, are you freaking out? And I said,
Yeah.
no, because there's nothing you can do about it. And two, I was like, I like who
Embrace
I
it.
am. And the older I get, the more I
Absolutely. And
like who
that's
I'm
good.
becoming.
And that's good. And it takes a while for some people, to get to that point, to get to really like themselves or who they are or who they've become, And I think, like I said earlier, I think a lot of us are in the same boat when it comes to the lockdown and COVID and having to kind of rediscover ourselves. And for some, it's been really good. Yeah.
It
I
has.
think that it's always good to keep your mind open to everything and anything, and know that just because you are in a career doesn't mean you're locked into it. You can always change. You can always do something, and don't lose sight of your goals or your passions, whatever it is. I think it's so important because, I mean, it's like if we don't have things to look forward to in our future, whether it's 2 years or 20 years from now, then I just feel like everyone's riding the same wave. They've got family and career and they're not thinking about their future. But what do they think about with their future? They think about money and investments and college and this and that. Well, sure, that's all normal, but no one thinks about what they want to do with their life when they go into retirement and all that.
Right.
And I'm thinking about that now, and I'm not even close to retirement, neither is my husband. But you still have to think about it because you're only getting older, you know? I think it's important to just not lose sight of anything and know that there's so much out there that you can do. But there's so much I don't even know about. I don't even know where I would even start outside of what I already know and I already like. I don't know. There's so much out there. But you know what? It's not made just for the youth anymore, right?
Right. I think that's a common like misconception. Like Mark felt really stupid going to college because of course he was in the
Right.
Marine Corps first and then went to college after he had retired from there. And so he's in college, with these 18-year-olds and he's like, I am the oldest person ever to go to
No,
school.
he's not. This
And I said,
No,
first of all, you're
no. The
not. But
65-year-old woman,
he felt
62-year-old woman was.
right. That's what I told him. I was like, I said, I know people that didn't get their medical degree until they were in their
Yeah.
40s. So, uh, like, I think it's fine. But he felt a little
Well, because he
awkward
was
about it. But
older
then
than
by
the
the end,
younger people that were going there. And I get that. If
yes,
there was maybe one other person of his age that was there, I mean, I get that. But my sister was, how old was she? In her late 30s when she attended the classes to get her early childhood education degree and her master's. And she didn't give a shit. She never even said it, to be honest with you.
That's, I went back and got a second degree and then a second master's, and I was older. And I never thought about it really. Like I didn't, there were several other people who were getting a second degree to become a teacher, and people who had, hadn't gone to school right out of high school. And so they had worked for a while and they were older. So I didn't really
I think it's more of a male ego thing. The male ego is so vast.
You know what?
It's got a lot to do with that. I don't know. I don't think that women really care that much about it, but there are certain things that men care about more than women do, and vice versa. So it is what it is. But, there's nothing wrong with feeling that way. Just don't quit because you feel that way,
Right. Now he finished and now he's all done. So he's super. I asked him if he was going to go back and get his master's.
Oh.
And he is not about
he's not.
that.
What did he study?
No.
Oh.
Criminal justice, because he's going back into federal service. He wants to do. He really wants to do the U.S. Marshals, but he's applied the Marshals, DEA, basically all of them.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's really cool. Did you ever see that movie with Tommy Lee Jones, U.S. Marshals, and what's his name? Harrison Ford. I love that movie.
Yes.
That sounds like a fun
Me
career.
too.
All right, so let's wrap this up, honey. Why don't you tell everybody how they can contact you and listen to your podcast and your shirts and all that?
So the podcast is An Accidentally Beautiful Life. It's the only one. If you search that, it comes up anywhere you can find podcasts. And I'm the Rhonda Marie on every social media. So, and then the shirts, Clothesline Apparel.
And then tell everybody about, your newest venture with Patreon, I think that you have something in your link tree that they can click on.
I do, in my link tree on my Instagram. And so I got asked if I was going to make new social media for this new venture. And I couldn't fathom the idea of having more social media. And so I said, no, I'm just going to do it from what I've used as my quote unquote personal social media. I said, I'm just going to put it all on there. So it's all at
sometimes you don't need to keep on adding so much because it's just too much to take care of, right?
It is, you have several for different ventures.
Yeah, too much to kind of maintain. And for me, nothing but Julie on Facebook and any kind of social media you want to catch me on. And same with the podcast. Feel free to like it and leave a really nice review. And my WordPress my blog is nothingbutjulie.wordpress.com. Thanks, Rhonda. This was fun. I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and I hope you guys enjoyed the topic and tune in next week. Take